Buckwheat, a newly rediscovered superfood in Western Europe, has been grown in Slovenia for generations. Above all, in the region of Prekmurje, with its fertile lowlands around the Mur River. Fruit and grapes also thrive in these soils. Buckwheat, as a grain or flour, is an important ingredient in local traditional cuisine. Another regional speciality is Buckwheat goulash. Daniela Giergek has been growing organic buckwheat ever since she took over her parents' farm 5 years ago.
Zdrava, hranljiva, vitamine, minerale, ogromno in tudi seveda brezglutenska.
Her husband Boštjan grew up in the capital Ljubljana. When they moved to the village, he became a farmer.
Ljubljane ne pogrešam. Pogledat kaj, ampak zdaj nekako, da bi me kaj vezali preveč nazaj, pa ne.
The first hours of the day are for him and his hobby alone. As soon as Boštjan has fed the animals, he gets on his bike. In September, the buckwheat is in full bloom.
Posebnost Ajde je tudi v tem, da ima hkrati cvet in že zrelo seme. Ko pač dozori, je treba večkrat to seveda spremljati. In ko samo postane, se pravi, celo polje rjavo, potem je že dovolj tudi, da jo požanjemo.
The name may suggest otherwise, but buckwheat is not a grain and has nothing to do with wheat. It is actually a relative of sorrel and rhubarb.
Ajda je posebno tudi po tem, da je dobro hranilo tako kot za ljudi in zdravo, tako tudi za zemljo. Se pravi, dostikrat se uporablja tudi za podor.
Buckwheat originates from Central Asia and came to Europe with the migration of the Mongols in the 14th century. It's been a staple food in the East for centuries, but in Western Europe, it's only gained widespread popularity in recent years. For breakfast, Daniela is preparing schmorn from milk and eggs. This is a kind of pancake which she often makes using the nutty-tasting buckwheat flour. The family grows and sells buckwheat and also uses it liberally in their own cooking.
Tudi v Prekmurju je ajda že od nekdaj, je tradicionalno žito. Prekmurje je žitarica Slovenije, je žitno polje, kjer raste, kjer pridelamo največ žit. Tako se je tudi v prehrano vedno vključevalo in se niso predstavljali obroka brez domačih žit. Dobro jutro.
Right now their kitchen is being remodeled, so the family is cooking and eating in the garden. Thanks to the fine weather, this is still possible in autumn. Schmorn can be a sweet or savory dish. The Giergek family always has the sweet variety for breakfast with homemade sour cherry and grape jam. In the past, the Pannonian Sea extended as far as this region. Its legacy is a rich and fertile soil. Every morning, the family crosses this landscape of hills and wide plains to travel to the neighboring town of Cankova. not far from the border with Styria. It's where Tilen and Zarja go to school and kindergarten. Boštjan and Daniela always take their children to Cankova together. Then they enjoy a little of the life that they had when they lived in the capital.
Pomembni so nama seveda, da se tudi malo odklopiva od tega tempoja, pa od dela na kmetiji. Tisto na kmetiji oba peljava v šolo in da se ustaviva tukaj na kavi s prijatelji, ker se drugače težko najdemo in srečamo, da si povemo, kaj je bilo novega, kaj se je tisti dan zgodilo. Tako da eden ritual, ki je zdaj že kar stalnica.
Dok kava, poša za zajtrk, pa še fajn vgojno.
Fajn na težče spleče.
Ne, na težče fajn kruj, marmelado.
Kaj smo njom zajtrko?
Čuli že, ka Brigita že pa ima novi recept za bujtu repo?
Ne.
Ne, ona ima dosti novih stvari, ali od repa so še ne čula.
Super. Gnes ideva k njej. Moramo nabrati jabolke, pa grozdje, pa ji moramo pelati tako. Va je upitala,
pa ima. Ja. Ka probamo, ha? To je njeni recept, pa ga ti ocenimo.
Leku imam zraven probo.
Daniela and Boštjan harvest the apples from the old orchard meadow for making jam. The two met in Ljubljana, where they were studying and working. When Daniela's parents wanted to give up their farm, the decision to move was difficult for both of them, but for different reasons.
Ljubljane ne pogrešam. Grem tja na obisk, pogledat kaj, ampak zdaj nekako, da bi me kaj vezali preveč nazaj, pa ne. Tukaj imam korenine.
Jaz jo pogrešam malo pa. Vsako leto manj, tako.
They're bringing the fruit to their friend Brigitta. Almost everything that Daniela and Boštjan grow is passed on to others for turning into a variety of products. This saves time and money and helps support local producers. Brigitta Čufar is also a part of this network. A trained cook, in recent years she's better known for her unusual jam creations. She cooks her own fruit as well as products from other growers.
Dobar dan, Brigitta.
Zdravo, zdravo, zdravo.
Kaj delaš dobrega?
Marmelada.
Jaz so ti pa delo prinesla.
Jurkina.
Nekaj, ja.
Vidva tudi imata Jurko? Odlično, odlično.
Zrela je.
Ful.
Na enem mestu je bolj, na drugi menja.
In? Bosta imela marmelado?
Ja.
Jurka, pa z
Jabolke.
pa še malo mišov.
Mešane.
Grape jams and apple jams are the tried and tested favorites. Brigitta's repertoire also includes more exotic recipes such as aronia berry jam or quince jam with pumpkin seeds. She's always happy to experiment.
Včeraj smo bili na kavi, Melita te pozdravlja.
Hvala.
Ja, točno. Omenila je novi recept, novo varianto bujte repe.
Ste že slišali?
Ja, na skrivaj je malo omenila in bi te zato jutro povabili, ko bi prišla k nam, če boš lejko. Pa bi se mi naučili to izvedbo bujte repe napraviti, bi nam pomagala, pa nas naučila.
Z veseljem.
Super.
Back at home, Boštjan is preparing the midday meal. He's making bograč, a traditional meat dish from the Prekmurje region.
Je pa potem zanimivo, da imamo tukaj 3 vrste mesa in to je dejansko gre za goulash, ki je bolj začinjen.
Venison is preferred, but beef, pork and game can all go into a bograč, which tastes best when it's cooked in a pot over an open fire. First, the onions and spices are browned. Then, one type of meat after another is added every hour. As a side dish, Daniela is making škanci. First, she adds buckwheat flour to boiling water.
Da se je naredila taka masa, da se je krogla naredila, bomo zdaj naredili luknjo. Voda pride tudi na notranjo stran kepe, da se cela kepa skuha. Drugače bi znotraj ostala kaša surova. Tako da vakuum spustimo.
Finally, Boštjan adds the pork, some white wine, cumin and marjoram to the pot. The goulash should simmer for another 40 minutes. The buckwheat flour is cooked. Daniela stirs until the mixture is nice and smooth.
Naši žganci bodo zdaj priloga k bograču, zato smo jih samo zabelili na masti. Ko pa se je kot samostojna jed, takrat jih pa zabelimo ali z slanino ali pa z domačimi ocvirki.
After 3 hours, the goulash is finally ready. It owes its dark red color to a generous helping of ground paprika. Daniela cuts the škanci into large pieces. They may look like rocks, but are in fact very soft and almost melt in the mouth. It's a delicious accompaniment to the succulent bograč. Boštjan has received a large order for buckwheat flour. Before he can take the dried grains to the mill, they still need to be cleaned. The plants with the ripe seeds are often so heavy that they bend right down to the ground. Stones, grass and clods of earth are also collected during the picking. The cleaning machine, which still works perfectly, dates back to Daniela's great-grandfather.
Skladiščimo je pa zato, da potem pri sami predelavi Ajda izgubi svoje hranilne zdravilne lastnosti, zato to delamo sproti. Po potrebi, ko nam poide zaloga, ko stranke povprašujejo po več, gremo pač v predelavo. Dober den, Bogdaj.
Dober den, Bogdaj. Edino za malo.
Pa poglednijo, če da vredi.
Lepo. Fajn supa, že fajn šumi.
Pan 10 vreč v avtu je pa napravila. Kako bi to šlo skozi?
Ide, komod.
Boštjan grinds his grain at the mill that is run by Roland Kolenko.
Dosta dela je?
Dosta imamo zdaj, ja. Zdaj ste si hajdinu poželi, zdaj bi si kašo imeli, zdaj bi si mel imeli.
Tako vse na jedno sezonsko, vidiš?
Si vse na jedno, ja.
As with grain, the vital substances in buckwheat gradually deplete after grinding. Even when it's a little more laborious, Boštjan always then comes with a smaller quantity of grain for Roland to grind.
Jaz bi lahko imel svojo mašinerijo, vendar s tem dejansko se zadolžim, pa postanem konkurenca nekomu, ki dobro dela, kjer pa jaz ne vidim potrebe. To se pravi, vsak naj dela svoje delo, pa sodelujemo skupaj. Nima smisla, da ima vsak cel svoj obrat, ker to so samo stroški, vzame čas. Nimamo toliko časa, sploh pa če želimo preživeti svoj čas še z drugimi.
For Daniela and Boštjan, this time is above all for spending with their children. They were also the reason for their decision to move from the city to the country.
Zdaj, ko vidim, da kako otroci odraščajo, da bi v mestu bilo čisto drugo otroštvo, drugo življenje, ne bi bili toliko v naravi z stvarmi, z naravo, z sadjem, z zelenjavo, tako da ni mi žal. Bi verjetno še enkrat tako naredila. Bova skuhala ajdovo kašo, pa rabiva zelenjavo. Ti naberi rdeče 3, a jaz idem po oranžne. Zarja, kaj delaš tam gor? Ajde, pridi dol. Ajde, pridi, idemo.
There's always something to do on the farm, so Daniela tries to involve the children in the work. This allows her to spend time with them and do her chores. And the two learn from an early age what needs doing in the garden. For the salad, Daniela boils peeled buckwheat in water for 20 minutes. Buckwheat grains can be used as a side dish in salads and soups or for different risottos in place of rice.
To ide stran. A sada dajmo tanke kolubare, ki jih bova dala na 4. Tak je. Super. Malo tudi z igro prikažemo, kako je. Veste pa tudi, od kje hrana prihaja in da se treba za njo malo potruditi, jo vzgojiti, tako da sta hvaležna za to, kar zraste, ker tudi rada jesta.
For the salad, Daniela uses whatever is ripe in the garden: zucchini, red peppers and tomatoes. The cooked buckwheat makes the dish more substantial, and the pumpkin seed oil, which they make themselves, lends a delicate nutty aroma. A sprinkle of salt and the salad is ready.
Že si probala? In? Podi bliže, ko se zgočimo, kamo vitro idemo. Znaš, kamo idemo vitro?
Ja. Pelace s čovnami.
Vitro idemo na jezero, pelace s čovnami. Kako se to obnaša ti? Zamisliš? Oli še ti to kapo daj prosim, dve odloži, pa smo zamizali.
It's the next morning, and the meadows are still wet from the mist. Ideal conditions for scything. Wet stalks are easier to cut. Before the grass can be used for the animals, it has to be dry. The family lives from the sale of meat. They have to tend to 17 cows, 8 pigs, and 2 dozen chickens. Daniela and Boštjan may have taken over the farm, but the important work is still done by Daniela's parents.
Glede prevzema kmetije, da vseeno poskušamo nadaljevati neko tradicijo. Zdaj pa pač, ko je določen čas, se pravi za to odločitev že minil, pa poskušamo nove stvari, si razdelimo delo na novo. V glavnem, vedno so potrebne neke novosti, ne?
One of the changes is that, as well as meat, they now sell buckwheat and fruit products and no longer use pesticides.
Ja, to ekološko kmetovanje nam je predvsem zelo pomembno zaradi tega, ker nekako pripomoremo k temu, da se to bolj razvije. Mi smo vseeno tukaj blizu Avstrije, ki imajo to zelo, zelo razvito. Pri nas je pa to še v povojih, nekako lahko rečem. In je prav, da mogoče dajemo tudi kak zgled. Ori, ideva, ori, ideva.
Brigitte is showing Daniela how to make a genuine prekmurska gibanica, a cake with 4 fillings and 8 layers. A strudel pastry serves as the basis for this traditional speciality. Daniela is in luck. Brigitte knows all the tricks for making it work.
Stari ljudje davali celo malo domačega kisa. Noter.
Kis,
ja. Drugače pa je res dosti bolj elastično testo pride, super se vleče. Ja.
Even when you know the tricks, a good strudel pastry requires patience and effort, well needed with plenty of oil.
Zdaj se še ustvarjajo, vidiš tole, ne? To pomeni, da še trga, ne? Še ni, ne? Je pa že prožno, ne? Notri vtreš. Tako.
The recipe is almost 200 years old and actually uses 2 types of dough: short crust pastry and strudel pastry. Brigitte is showing Daniela the simpler version with only strudel pastry. It's hard enough getting one right, let alone 2.
Nobena mašina ne naredi takšnega testa, kot roke naredijo. Kaj ti moraš testo čutiti. Ti ga moraš v roki občutiti, kadar je on primeren, volen, da on gre lepo narazen, da se začne, se pravi, vlečti. Edino z rokami lahko to občutiš, z strojem nikoli.
While the pastry is resting, the women prepare the fillings for the strudel. Sour apples, poppy seeds, cottage cheese and ground walnuts.
Pri vseh sestavinah uporabimo isto količino sladkorja, ne? Se pravi 4 žlice na vsako maso. Kot kuharica ne je včasih dobro vedeti, če nimaš vage, koliko ena žlica vaga. In ena žlica vaga med 22 in 25 gramov. Da je to 4 žlice, to je nekje tam 100 gramov. Pri skuti je pa tako, veš, včasih imamo fajn sočno skuto, včasih je pa suha. Najina je malo bolj suha, zato bova za najino skuto uporabljali eno žlico več smetane, da bo res sočno.
The pastry has rested for long enough.
Pravi, da je vsa površina enakomerno debela. Takole, tako nekako približno, lahko probaš z roko. Se pravi, ne, da ni predebelo.
Now the hardest part, pulling it out very thinly without breaking it.
Ker nisem naredila krhkega testa za dno, sem pač tukaj zdaj uporabila dvojno vlečeno testo, tako da bo tudi primerno za našo gibanico.
Each filling must be spread onto the thin strudel pastry in a precise order.
Sebi vlečeš tak.
Most importantly, dry and juicy fillings should alternate.
Zdaj smo dali sočno maso, zdaj prije spet suha.
Zdaj pa spet suha.
Ampak preden damo suho, obvezno malo spet pomastimo.
After 4 fillings, everything is repeated in the same order. Finally, the creation is coated in a thick mix of butter, egg yolk and sour cream, and then baked in the stone oven for almost 2 hours. The family is making the most of the last warm autumn days for a trip to Lake Krasci. The lake is a dammed tributary of the Ledava River. Such days out with the children are only possible because they have the support of Daniela's parents, who take over their duties on the farm whenever necessary. In this way, they manage to give their children what they consider important, despite their busy schedules.
To imamo že tudi mokro. Nama pa veliko pomeni, da lahko otrokom pokaževa širšo okolico. Po vsej Sloveniji smo že prepotovali, šli na izlete.
Vidimo nove stvari, poskušamo, ja. Poskušamo, trudimo se vsi. Pač delati je treba, a treba se je pa tudi vzeti čas zase. Tako da poskušamo, vsi se učimo, pa vidimo, kako uspe.
The friends have taken up the idea of cooking together and are looking forward to Brigitta's modern interpretation of the traditional buitarepa stew. Following instructions from Brigitta, they are preparing the turnips for the dish. This is an old, almost forgotten type of vegetable.
Se opravičujem, malo sem zamudila. Joj, kako si prijazen, hvala. Evo mene, zdravo. Vidim, da ste že skuhali, je super.
The grated turnip simmers in the pot together with the pork.
Odlično diši, vam povem.
Brigitta needs the chopped onions and garlic for a roux sauce, which will later be used to thicken the stew.
Čebula se je že kuhala notri, ste dali jo notri, tako. Jaz jo pa dam zdaj tukaj pri frigaši še zraven, da še da bolj izraziti okus. Tak, zdaj pa bom jaz vam dala, da poberete meso čim bolj dol, se pravi, pa ga razdrobimo nazaj v repo. Ne?
4 years ago, Brigitta gave up her job as a cook in a hotel and has now made a name for herself as a jam cook. She turned her hobby into a new career.
Pa skozi sodelovanje, ki ga imamo z vsemi tukaj okrog ljudmi, sem ugotovila, da se od tega da tudi na ta način živeti. Se pravi, delamo cateringe, doma imamo predelavo sadja, v katero tudi vlagam veliko ljubezni in svojega dela, tako da se da od tega kar živeti.
Traditionally, this turnip stew is cooked immediately after the slaughter of the pig. There's also roast pork and 3 different sausages, classic blood sausage, as well as 2 special sausages enriched with millet and buckwheat groats.
Modernejšo verzijo vam pokažem, kako. Čisto enostavno. Te klobasice bomo vzeli narazen.
Brigitta's reinterpretation of the dish has been made with exactly the same ingredients. but she's turned the sausages into little balls. The roast pork becomes wafer-thin fried crisps. And the turnip stew has been transformed into a finely pureed cream.
Tako, zdaj pa imamo bujto repo na tradicionalni način, tako kot smo jo vajeni, kup vsega, pa nekaj minimalističnega, nežnega, pa vam povem tudi dobrega. Hrana je gotova, zdaj pa lahko gremo jesti.
Even simple dishes can look fantastic and can taste even better. It's Slovenian cuisine through and through.